Well, I'm pretty excited to be here. At the morning, I was very nervous, but after attending a couple of talks, I got so excited at seeing how all of us are sort of on the same track, and we're trying to think about similar problems. And one thing that I've heard in most of the talks is this idea of customer feedback, insights, and prioritization, and things related to this, which is the core of my talk, so I hope this is useful. So without further ado, I'll get started. So what I'm going to be talking about here is about customer feedback, but not really about how listening and using that feedback to drive tactical decisions in your organization. If you get a lot of feedback via communication channel that something is broken, you have to fix it, that's all right, we can fix it. I'm talking more about how using this feedback for longer term, more strategic decision making in your organization. As it's already been said, a little bit about me. I'm Daniel. This is a little bit of my career profile and a little bit of my interests. I won't spend much time. The only thing that maybe is meaningful to tell is that I wear the hat of a researcher when needed, and I'm a product manager when needed at my current job. So I do a little bit of both. Where I work right now is a company called Contentful. This is meaningful for the presentation. Contentful is, depending on who you ask, content infrastructure for driving digital applications that is often used to drive companies away from the CMS of old and help them in the digital transformation. That's a lot of buzzwords. You can also think of it as a headless CMS. But it's a little bit of a developer platform and a little bit of that. Also important for the presentation is a fastly growing company. So I'm going to be telling you about something that happened since I joined Contentful when we were 15 people to now we are close to 150 people with 60 open positions. So it's growing fast over the period of 2 years. We're a B2B. So this is more relevant for people that have built relationships with their partners. We are SaaS, and we're API first. So all of the things are very relevant for the rest. But let's get into it. So as a PM, at some point, if you're trying to figure out what to do next, you may get some questions like this. And this is not a particular question. It's just an example of a question where you want to know not just what people are asking for, not what's not working, not what's just business priority, but an aggregate. You want to know, for example, all the enterprise customer use cases that rely heavily on a particular feature. And this is just an example of a different question. You need this information to make a decision whether you should invest more in spaces or not in spaces, for example. And it can be any kind of question. It can be, hey, list all the enterprise customers who have made requests on content editing in the last 6 months or in the last 3 months, over the last year, or customers have made this kind of request with an NPS promoter score or detractor. It would be great if we could have access to this data in a format that we can slice it and dice it to answer the questions that we need answers for. And certainly, we do have all this information. And especially PMs are great at keeping it on their heads and in little text files. We have a lot of strategies and spreadsheets where we keep this so we can move on. Otherwise, how would we do our job? But we sure have all this information, but do we have a very powerful way to access it reliably across the entire organization, maybe not just a PM? What if you leave the company? What happens with that knowledge that you have about your customers and your product? That is kind of hard. And I've been looking at this problem for many years and asking in many meetups and PMs how people do this. And the answer is always something like this. It's hard. And maybe this is not the main crowd to preach this, but being a PM is a tough job. And this is because of many reasons. It sounds easy. For instance, when it comes to managing feedback, what you want to do is, well, there's many touch points, especially in a company like mine, where people interact with customers. And what we want to do is funnel all the knowledge that we get from our touch points with customers, give it to product. Product will think hard about it, and they will make a decision. Great success. Shouldn't be that hard. In practice, it's very hard. In practice, a PM has to be able to look for information across many channels. Hey, are people complaining through customer support, customer success? Is this something that came through sales? Is this something that came through social media or in a meetup evangelizing? So you want to be able to have access to this information across many channels and avoid the information silo problem. Then you want to avoid the recency bias or recency immunity problem where you hear something now like, hey, 280 characters is a hot thing, so we should all go and rush on products and make it 280 characters long. And well, that's not how it works. Or sometimes when you hear something over and over and over again, that the organization gets numb about it. They just don't listen to it. So you need to search about, break the silos, search over time, and then even if you find something that you like, how does this line with our company objectives? How does this line with our strategic drivers, with our roadmap, with changes in the market? How does this particular thing? We figured out that 75 people want this. Who are these 75 people? Where do they come from? Where are we going? Do we line up? Is this a good idea? I think these are all questions that we always want to have better answers for. And we have to do all of this. We're in the present with our teams trying to ship stuff and maintain stuff. In a SaaS company, we always have maintaining something. We have a relationship. In an API company, we don't take stuff out. We just can't. So it's very hard. But maybe the main insight here is that the problem is not that we don't have feedback from our customers, at least in our case, is that we have too many sources of information and too much feedback. And instead of focusing on what to do with that feedback as a tactical problem, let's try to think better about it. Sure, there are many things that we can do, but maybe just even take a step further down and see, okay, what else we could do about it. If you go to the internet and you get nerdy, you'll find this concept of customer intelligence. It's just fancy words for a process of gathering information about your customers. But a couple key things there is like building better relationship with your customers and improve strategic decision making. Oftentimes, feedback is useful more for tactical decision making, but not necessarily for strategical, and there are many reasons why. I mentioned a couple already. So if you think of customer intelligence, I've given this talk before, and sometimes, hey, isn't this the data team? Isn't this the numbers? And I think these things complement each other. So you can have, of course, data is super important for PMs to figure out most of the things that we do, but you can have a qualitative counterpart where you can even quantify the qualitative feedback and cross-reference it with many channels. So you can have your yin and yang, and you can make better informed decisions. Also, maybe sometimes a problem with the quantitative data is that it's backwards looking. You can get really fancy and do predictive models, but that's not everyone's expertise in an organization. So I believe this is a good approach. All right, so we figured out that we wanted customer intelligence. So we found this thing, and then we went out there searching. I'm going to tell you a story, by the way, of how we tried to solve this. Then it didn't quite work out, and then we tried again, and it sort of worked out. Maybe I should have started with that. But okay, we realized that we wanted to do a customer intelligence pipeline of some sorts where we can answer these kind of questions. And we found this product. We are a SaaS company, so we believe that you shouldn't build if you can hire a product to do the job for you. And it's called Product Board. And Product Board, we tried it like a little bit over 2 years ago, and it was pretty good. It solved many of the problems that we had. You can channel your data from many sources. It integrates with Zendesk, with Intercom, with Salesforce, with whatever it is that you use. And we could have all of the information in a single repository, which was already pretty good. And then inside of it, they have many features where you can tag things, you can structure, you can bundle them, so you can grab pieces of feedback about a particular thing that came from multiple channels, put a label on it, package it, then through Product Board, you can build your roadmap and you can drive your product development process along the line with it. And this sounded great, and we were really enthusiastic about it, and we had to internally sell this idea of building a customer intelligence pipeline. But sometimes in life, things are just not meant to be. And this was such one of the cases. And we learned many things along the way, but one of them is like, we underestimated the level of support we needed in the organization to make this work. Turns out if the feedback that makes it into the tool is not the right or the complete version of it is either misleading or not trustworthy. We underestimated the amount of investment that the members of the PM team would have had to invest or to put to make this work. We learned something that I already learned before, that is ontologies and taxonomies are a pretty hard thing, period. But I think the main thing is like the people and the processes that they follow in their everyday life when they talk to a customer to collect this feedback, they matter way more than the tool that we chose. And having information that you can act upon is way more important than just having a lot of information. So we've been talking a lot today about feedback. And let's say that you can put all your feedback together into a big bucket, and then you have a bucket of information. That's an artifact. That's something that is there, and sometimes it may even be a vanity kind of thing. What you want really are insights, because for the practical things, we can take care of our own. If a button's broken, fix the button. But if you want to get more insightful information, you need to structure everything else so that it's meant to give you that output. And that's something that's maybe the thing that we failed at time. And now in hindsight, it's kind of embarrassing. But we have this revelation that we needed to go beyond the more feedback, the better. Because at some point it seems tempting. It seems like, if we get more feedback, more points of view, we'll just think really hard. And well, in hindsight, it's like, no. What you want is actionable bits. You want something that leads a direction. You want the good stuff. And it was shocking back then, and now I look at it and I'm like, well, we should have known that from the beginning. But in any case, we started thinking, okay, what are the things that we want to get out of the feedback? How is this feedback going to be used? How does it impact the rest of the organization? So we started thinking, all right, we're going to build something called a customer intelligence pipeline, for lack of a better name. And we're going to be tool agnostic this time, and we're just going to focus on the things that we want the data to do first. And these are some examples. So a good example that I like to use is working with design teams or engineering teams who, in the end, consume the data through the PM or directly through a tool or whatever workflow that you have. If you tell a designer, hey, people don't like the search bar 50 times, and you tell them 50 people don't like the search bar, the designer actually has a hard time working on it. He needs to know who these people are, what the context is, what persona it is, in which part of the sales journey or the customer journey they're upon, and then if you give them all the information, they can act on it. So we say, okay, next time we structure our data, we're gonna make it in a way that we can make these queries. In engineering, we had similar things. Hey, the thing is too slow. It's too slow for who? In what context? Is it really our fault? So we made a couple of guidelines. Okay, these are the things that we're gonna be able to answer, and this will vary greatly from organization to organization, and this has nothing to do with a tool. In the end, we ended up with 3 main goals, objectives that we wanted to achieve with the new version 2 of this project. We learned that it has to be very easy to submit feedback, otherwise people won't do it. Again, mind-blowing, but here we are. Turns out that people are very busy. Customer support agents are very busy. Sales agents are pretty busy, and it has to be straightforward. Otherwise, the good stuff won't end up there. Then, if you promise people that you're gonna listen to the entire organization's feedback, you have to you are held accountable. You have to give them a response. Some of them are fine, and then, hey, this is stuff that the product needs to know. And these are some things that my account are asking me, and I need to give them an answer. So that's also something that we kept to heart, like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna offer you a way to submit one-way communication and two-way communication. And the last but not least, after we figured out how to put all the right feedback in the right format, in the right place, it has to be actionable. We have to have a good, clear, usable way to get insights out of this data. And I went back to reading, and as Sun Tzu famously said in The Art of War, building a customer intelligence pipeline in a large organization is nearly impossible. And it has nothing to do with a tool. It has to do with getting people to work together and agree over internal processes, and maybe we're lucky that Contentful is not that big at this point, and we can still do this. But if the entire organization agrees on what you're trying to do when it comes, also because we're a SaaS B2B company, if everybody agrees over this is how we want to react to the voice of the customer, then you can do something great. But it's not a very luxurious job. You have to go out there and you have to get out of the way of your daily deliveries and push for this. This has to be driven to drive organizational change, and many of you might know driving organizational change many times is a thankless job, but it's a good job. In any case, we realized that because this is so scary and so demanding and sort of a little bit crazy, few companies would do it. So if we do it, maybe we'll have an advantage because we will be able to answer all these questions on demand as soon as we need it if this sort of worked out. So people were trusting me and said, okay, give it another shot. But this time we were different. This time we focused, instead of jumping straight to a tool, which we did, but later, we looked inside and we said, we took it, a fellow researcher and me, we took it to the streets, and we literally went out there with every person in every organization, not every person, but representatives of every organization, and we just asked them, hey, how do you submit feedback to the product team? Where do you get it? What do you do with it? What effort does it take to do with it? And this is just a sample. It's not a full representation of how it is. But you'll see that feedback is actually, in reality, outside of stereotypes, it's handled in many different ways. Some of it ends on a wiki document. Some of in a different wiki document. Some of them just ping me on Slack and say, Daniel, this customer wants this. Some of them it's in the private Slack channel. Some of them in the ticket management system. Some of them end up just in Zendesk. And we needed to understand what was the internal situation and where was the voice of the customer like getting lost to make sure we could properly capture it. Along the way, we realized there was some internal other things, like people reporting bugs to product that is most like an engineering concern that was driving noise and was making people frustrated. So, okay, that's something that we probably will have to do because that's organizational change. So after we figured out, okay, this is the situation of the problem, and we ideated ways to deal with it, we thought, okay, we need a tool. At this point, we didn't jump tool first, but now we need a tool. And we decided to not use product board anymore. Instead, we use a new tool called NumNum. NumNum is similar to product board in many ways. It has many of the same features, but NumNum is more focused on just collecting the information in place and then giving you many, many powerful features and ways to segment and slice your data any way you want. And it doesn't even try to manage your roadmap or your prioritization or anything like that. This is a tool to get insights. And if something we learned is that the tool was doing more things and it was distracting people, and we just wanted insights. So we chose that tool. The tool is beautiful, so it integrates with all the systems, likewise. So we just went back to the organization and communicated this clearly. All right, we talked with everybody, and from now on, we're gonna have a simple process for you to submit feedback to the product team. And for many of you, you don't have to do anything. If you're a CS support manager, if you're a agent, all you have to do is use a tool that if you are in sales conversation and use Salesforce, you don't have to do anything. Everything is automatically piped down to NumNum. So thank you for the feedback. You don't have to do anything else. Everybody was happy about it. Also, they're happy because they don't have to do anything. They're happy because we will listen. If you, for whatever reason, learn about something that is not on these tools, but you care about the product, you want to let us know, you have these 3 options. You're an email person, you're a Slack person, you're a survey person, because believe it or not, there are survey people out there. And it will end up in NumNum the same way. It's all good. And it will be beautifully structured, and we will be able to query it any way we want. And then people were, that was good for the overall health of the organization, so the communication with the product org was very healthy at that point. And then, sure, if you want response and you need 2-way communication, we have this other way, and this will be handled that way, but that's a different topic. And if you have engineering issues, this is no longer our concern. We cut that off. We helped the QA folks figure out their workflow to submit QA things, and that was out of the way. So we ended up with a very clean setup. But what really makes the thing work is the actual product taxonomy. And if anybody in the audience has a technical background, a math, logic, computer science background, you probably dealt with this at some point in some course. Taxonomies are very hard. And I think that's what makes or break the whole thing. If your taxonomy is usable, if your taxonomy is assigned to help you answer the questions that you want, everything works. When we tried the last time, the taxonomy was more technically driven. These are the components, these are the architecture. We're thinking like engineers. How do we map the product to something? Well, we have these modules, we have these components. That didn't really work. Then we went full PM. No, we're gonna think of customer problems. We're gonna map everything as a taxonomy based on customer problems. I can edit something, I cannot publish, I cannot get my API key. Those were great for us internally because we drink the Kool-Aid. But in practice, especially if these were to be used by the entire organization, it didn't really work out. So we had to accept that there's no right taxonomy, and you may need more than one, and you have to choose a point of view, and you just have to try it out. So what we did is we thought of ways that naturally people in the organization thought about the product, talked about the product, communicated with our customers about the product, and we just made something that was not technically correct, but it worked. And we did this by working with every person in the organization about, hey, can you use this? We actually held workshops with people. This is all the feedback channeling into NumNum, and can you help us tag it? Can you help us make a query? We would grab a front-end engineer that really cares about performance and say, hey, can you find something interesting about your product by using this tool? And then we'll query with it, and we'll tweak things along the way. And they did. And so the same thing with designers and with PMs. And suddenly everybody was using the tool, and they were getting access to information that, before only PMs had access, and it was very expensive, long time-consuming information to create. So that was great. But I know at this point I've been talking a lot, and I've been, yeah, it sounds great, and you talk about stuff, but how does it really look like, or what is it how does this feel, or what is it? So I just want to show you a very brief demo of a simple query. If you remember, I mentioned this before, a simple question. These are enterprise customers who have made feature requests about content editing. So with the whole setup that we have today, you can log into NumNum. Welcome to NumNum. And this is somebody making a search in case it's too small. And it's just typing, well, I want to know, this is all our information from many channels. It's typing enterprise. I care about enterprise customers. That's a property that we really care. Feature request, that's what I care about, and content editing. And suddenly you have a list of all the documents from any channel without any silo that are relevant to this query, and you get the full context of the designer, the PM, the engineer that has to act on this data. They get the whole picture. And they also get the contact information. We have a very close relationship with our customers, so we can go back and say, hey, what do you mean you want 280 characters? That doesn't make any sense. Instead of just jumping ahead and acting on it if needed. And that's just a sample question, but it could have been any other question. I want feature requests by personas that are editorial, that are in the first 2 weeks of use. In theory, if you structure a taxonomy and do it like this, everything can be done. And there's a lot of parts of the process that can be automated. Yeah. And you get a couple of other goodies, like which are the top trends. You can see which have been the top enterprise feature requests about whatever, automatically out of NumNum. It also tries to help out with that. So if there's anything that I would like you to take away from this, is that this is difficult. This can be done. I think the more I talk with other people, it really depends on the size and the state of the organization. But if you can take some of these ideas with you and think, how can we get better feedback from our internal touch points and external touch points, and how can we structure it so we can query it, I think it will benefit anybody. Yeah, and if you ever want to talk about this topic, just ping me. I'm sort of in love with this problem, so I'll be happy to talk about it anytime. Well, thank you very much.